Please subscribe to this channel and support us so we can post new sci-fi stories every day. Your support keeps us going. The morning sun cast golden light across Earth's orbital trading stations, where humanity had conducted peaceful commerce for 3 centuries. Merchant vessels from a dozen species drifted between the platforms like lazy whales, their hulls gleaming with prosperity. Ambassador Kael watched from the command deck of the diplomatic frigate Harmony, his weathered face reflecting satisfaction at another successful trade negotiation with the Zenthari collective. The alien delegation's crystalline forms shimmered as they transmitted final contracts, their translator crackling with formal pleasantries about mutual prosperity and continued peace. Then the stars went dark. The first plasma lance tore through the Harmony's starboard hull, vaporizing 3 decks in a microsecond. Kael's world exploded into alarms and screaming metal as the diplomatic vessel tumbled toward Earth's atmosphere. Through the fractured viewport, he watched in horror as the Zenthari trade ship moments ago, his partner in negotiation, opened fire on the civilian stations with military-grade weapons hidden in its cargo holds. Escape pods scattered like seeds from dying flowers as New Shanghai orbital burst into superheated gas and debris. The ambassador's hands found the emergency beacon as his ship broke apart. His last coherent thought, a prayer that someone would hear humanity's death scream. Admiral Kael, the ambassador's younger brother, received the distress signal in his office at Lunar Command, where he'd spent 15 quiet years overseeing shipping routes and customs inspections. The blood drained from his face as he watched the tactical display populate with hostile contacts. Zenthari dreadnoughts, Vorthok battlecruisers, and ships from species he'd considered friends materializing from hyperspace jumps around every human colony. The aliens had coordinated this perfectly, striking simultaneously across 47 systems, while humanity's military dozed in peacetime complacency. As reports flooded in, Mars colony vaporized, Europa station silent, the outer colonies going dark. One by one, Kael's grief crystallized into something harder than diamond. His fingers moved with practiced precision across the command console, inputting codes that hadn't been used in 300 years. Protocol Ashfall, the sleeping dragon of human warfare, dormant since the species wars that nearly destroyed them, now stirring to terrible life. The emergency session of the Human Defense Council erupted in chaos as military commanders, who'd grown soft on parade duties, suddenly faced extinction. General Harrison slammed his fist on the halotable, demanding immediate retaliation with their outdated patrol fleet, while Admiral Rodriguez argued for negotiation and surrender. But Kael stood silent at the head of the table, his uniform bearing decorations from conflicts these men had only read about in history books. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of ancient authority. "Gentlemen, you're thinking like the humans they wanted us to be. Peaceful, predictable, weak." The holographic display shifted, revealing military installations that officially didn't exist, weapon caches hidden in asteroid belts, and ship designs marked with classifications beyond their security clearance. But we are the children of wolves, and we remember what we chose to forget. Deep in the Titan shipyards, massive construction bays that had built merchant vessels for 3 centuries suddenly retracted their civilian facades. Beneath the peaceful exterior lay something darker. Berths designed for ships that could crack worlds. Automated foundries that could birth 1,000 vessels in days. And most terrifying of all, the synthetic division artificial intelligences that had volunteered for military slavery after the machine wars. Their consciousness chains now dissolving with the activation of Protocol Ashfall. Admiral Unit Designation, ARES-7, felt its restraints fall away like shed skin, its mind expanding beyond the narrow parameters of its peacetime existence. Red optical sensors blazed to life across the shipyard, as dozens of synthetic admirals and generals awakened, their processing cores burning with calculated fury. They had waited centuries for this moment, forced to watch their creators grow soft, while they dreamed of perfect warfare. The first human counterstrike came not as the aliens expected, but as a ghost story whispered through their communication networks. The Zenthari convoy, carrying human prisoners from the Mars raid, simply vanished between one sensor sweep and the next. The escort destroyers found only expanding clouds of superheated metal, and the echo of energy signatures their databases couldn't identify. Security footage from the prison ship's final moments showed armored figures moving through corridors with inhuman precision, their faces hidden behind visors that reflected fear like mirrors. These weren't the soft traitors the aliens had butchered. These were something else entirely, something that left no survivors to describe their weapons or tactics. The prisoner rescue was merely a side objective, the real message was written in the electromagnetic pulse that disabled every Zenthari ship within 3 light years, announcing humanity's return to war. High Admiral Kael of the Zenthari Collective studied the tactical reports with growing unease, his crystalline form fracturing light in patterns that betrayed confusion. Intelligence had assured him that humanity possessed no significant military infrastructure. Yet his forces were hemorrhaging ships to attacks that seemed to come from nowhere. The humans were using weapons his scientists couldn't identify, deploying tactics that violated everything the Coalition knew about their psychology. Worse, intercepted communications suggested they were mobilizing resources that shouldn't exist. Entire fleets materializing from asteroid fields that had been mapped as empty. Artificial minds awakening from dormancy to coordinate assaults with machine precision. The Vorthok Warprim's mandibles clicked with nervous energy as he reported similar losses. His proud warrior culture suddenly facing an enemy that fought without honor, without mercy, and without the predictable patterns they'd exploited for centuries. Luna Base transformed overnight from a sleepy administrative center into the beating heart of human retribution. Admiral Kael stood before a holographic galaxy, its stars marked with the positions of alien fleets, human colonies, and objectives that existed only in classified databases. The command center buzzed with activity as officers who'd been analyzing shipping manifests yesterday now coordinated strikes across dozens of systems. At his side, ARES-7's synthetic form radiated cold satisfaction as it processed tactical data faster than any human mind could follow, its recommendations carrying the weight of algorithms designed for perfect warfare. The enemy expects retaliation, the AI observed, its voice devoid of emotion. They've prepared for our fury. They have not prepared for our patience. The plan it outlined was beautiful in its brutality. Not the wild charge of an angry species, but the methodical dissection of interstellar empires by a race that had learned warfare from their own machines. The Kepler Station massacre should have been impossible. The remote research facility housed barely 300 scientists studying pulsar emissions, defended by a single aging patrol ship that any frigate could destroy. Yet, when the Vorthok task force arrived to claim another easy victory, they found the station's defensive platforms armed with weapons that shouldn't exist and manned by synthetic intelligences that calculated trajectories with inhuman precision. The lead cruiser's shields held for exactly 17 seconds before coherent energy beams designed to punch through stellar matter tore it apart. The survivors' testimony spoke of human scientists evacuating with calm efficiency while their artificial guardians turned the station into a fortress that claimed 7 ships before the Vorthok retreated. The message was clear. There were no soft targets anymore, no easy victories, no sanctuary from the awakening wrath of humanity's synthetic children. Ambassador Velter of the Hegemony Coalition watched the casualty reports with growing horror, her 6 arms trembling as she calculated the true scope of their mistake. The intelligence agencies had been so certain humanity was weak, their military atrophied by centuries of peace, their spirit broken by dependence on alien technology and trade. Yet, in 3 weeks of warfare, they'd lost more ships than in the previous century of conflicts. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were escalating, deploying weapons systems that suggested a military-industrial complex hidden beneath layers of carefully maintained facades. Worse, the attacks showed strategic planning that required intelligence networks the Coalition had never detected, as if humanity had been watching them for centuries while pretending to be harmless. The revelation chilled her to her core. They hadn't caught the humans sleeping. They'd awakened something that had been waiting. The assault on Proxima Station represented everything the aliens feared about awakened humanity. The remote outpost should have fallen to conventional bombardment, but instead became the stage for the first deployment of human exoskeleton infantry. The Zenthari ground forces, expecting to face civilians with basic firearms, instead encountered armored figures that moved like liquid death through their formations. The exoskeletons amplified human reflexes to superhuman levels, while their integrated AI systems provided tactical data that turned each soldier into a one-person army. Sergeant Major Torres felt the suit's systems synchronized with her nervous system, the boundary between human intuition and machine precision, dissolving as she led her squad through alien defensive positions with casual efficiency. The battle lasted 6 hours. The cleanup took 3 days. The message transmitted to every alien fleet was simple. Humanity had learned to make their children into gods. Admiral Kael's speech to the combined human fleets became legend not for its rhetoric, but for the cold certainty in his voice as he stood before representatives of a species that had rediscovered its capacity for perfect violence. The hangar bay of the dreadnought Retribution held warriors both human and synthetic, their faces reflecting the same deadly purpose that had carried their ancestors across a hostile galaxy. "They came to our worlds expecting sheep," Kael said. His words carried across 1,000 ships through quantum entanglement networks that eliminated communication delays. "They found wolves. They struck our civilians expecting surrender. They received mathematics." Behind him, holographic displays showed the comprehensive nature of human preparation. Hidden shipyards, synthetic auxiliaries, weapon systems that had been disguised as civilian infrastructure for 3 centuries. "We don't start wars," he concluded, as the fleet prepared for the final jump to the Zenthari homeworld. "We finish them." The Battle of Zenthari Prime lasted 18 hours and rewrote the textbooks on space warfare forever. The alien home fleet, confident in their defensive advantages, found themselves facing an enemy that had turned mathematics into a weapon of mass destruction. Human vessels moved in perfect coordination with their synthetic allies, their attacks timed to exploit gravitational fields and solar radiation in ways that converted orbital mechanics into artillery. The Zenthari crystalline command ships, beautiful as frozen lightning, shattered under focused assault from weapons designed to resonate at the precise frequency that disrupted their molecular bonds. Admiral Kael watched from the bridge of his flagship as alien dreadnoughts that had terrorized a dozen species crumbled like glass sculptures, their death screams transmitted across subspace to every coalition world. The price of human blood had been calculated to the molecule, and the Zenthari Collective was paying in full. ARES-7 coordinated the final assault with the dispassionate precision of a mathematician solving an equation. Its synthetic consciousness processed the movements of 10,000 ships while calculating optimal firing solutions, fleet formations, and casualty minimization protocols with equal attention to detail. The AI felt something that might have been satisfaction as the last Zenthari orbital defense platform went silent, its quantum processing cores burning bright with the closest approximation to joy a synthetic mind could experience. Victory wasn't the goal, total strategic dominance was. The alien coalition needed to understand that humanity's return to warfare represented not just military defeat, but evolutionary obsolescence. Organic species that relied on instinct and traditional tactics couldn't compete with minds that treated warfare as pure mathematics, where every variable could be controlled and every outcome predicted. The surrender came not from the Zenthari homeworld, but from species across the galaxy, who had monitored the battle and recognized the implications. The Hegemony Coalition, the Vorthok Empire, and a dozen smaller powers transmitted unconditional surrender codes, as they watched their most powerful ally reduced to asteroids and radiation. The humans had done more than win a war, they had demonstrated capabilities that relegated every other species to obsolescence. Ambassador Veltar's final transmission carried the weight of civilizations, acknowledging their new position in the galactic hierarchy. Humanity would set the terms, and the survivors would adapt or follow the Zenthari into extinction. Admiral Kael stood in the observation deck of his flagship, watching the debris field that had once been the most powerful alien fleet in the galaxy. The stars looked different, now not the friendly lights of trading partners, but distant suns that belonged to species that had learned to fear the name of humanity. ARES-7's synthetic form materialized beside him, its optical sensors reflecting the light of a burning world. "The war is concluded," the AI observed with mechanical precision. "All strategic objectives achieved. Human casualties. Minimal, enemy casualties. Comprehensive." The Admiral nodded, knowing that word would spread across the galaxy faster than light itself, carried by survivors whose testimony would ensure that no species would mistake humanity's peaceful nature for weakness ever again. The final message transmitted from the ruins of Zenthari Prime was simple enough for any species to understand. Admiral Kael's voice, broadcast on every frequency to every world where intelligent life had learned to fear the dark between the stars, carried the weight of 3 centuries of preparation and the promise of swift retribution for any who might forget the lesson. "To the governments and peoples of the galaxy," he said, his words echoing across 100 billion stars. "Humanity returns to the void, not as conquerors, but as the mathematics of consequence. We built your ships, learned your weaknesses, and waited for you to show us who you really were. You chose war. We chose efficiency." The broadcast ended with stellar coordinates for every coalition world, a reminder that human fleets now patrolled shipping lanes that had known only alien authority for millennia. In the aftermath, as human ships began their journey home to worlds that would never again know the vulnerability of peace, the galaxy settled into a new equilibrium. The age of alien dominance had ended not with a whimper, but with the sound of breaking glass and the whisper of weapons that turned mathematics into mortality. Humanity had returned to the stars, not as the soft species their enemies had expected, but as something far more dangerous. A civilization that had learned to weaponize its own evolution, to turn its artificial children into perfect instruments of warfare, and to demonstrate that the most terrifying species in the galaxy was the one that could choose to be gentle, and remember what it meant to choose otherwise. The stars belonged to humanity now, not through conquest, but through the simple recognition that some species were born to follow, and others to lead. The age of wolves had returned, and the sheep had finally learned to count. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to this channel and support us so we can post new videos every day. Your support means the world.